Hey everybody, welcome to our first interview on the new podcast, the Worship Podcast. And I'm so excited to have our guest Nic Gonzales with us. Welcome, Nic.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, Wisdom.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you here. And we're going to put you on the spot right away.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a little rapid fire.
I love it.
So you have to answer as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Without, thinking for too long.
You got it.
All right. So, Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Your favorite season?
Summer.
Favorite food?
Burger.
How many songs in your ideal set list?
About 15.
Favorite vacation spot?
I like San Diego. It's like a mix of cool and hot.
Yeah. What's the first app you open in the morning?
Instagram.
Your favorite beverage?
I've been really big on water lately.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, but if I had any choice, it'd probably be Arnold Palmer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Your favorite instrument?
Guitar.
Cool.
Yeah.
So for those of us who may be familiar with maybe some of the songs you've been involved in, you were I remember actually seeing you live. I've never told you this.
All right.
But
Okay.
I've actually seen you live. Have you ever played in California?
Yeah, a bunch. We play all the time.
Spirit West Coast?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We love Spirit West Coast.
So little known fact.
Yeah.
I've never told anybody this.
I love this game.
I actually did security at your concert at Spirit West Coast.
Yes! Now I've arrived. Are you kidding me?
I lost a lot of hearing that day. I was right in front of the
Yes.
speaker, and I mean your music is very, high energy, very fun.
I understand that.
And I didn't have earplugs. Afterwards, my ears were ringing.
It had to have been the horn section, man.
Yeah.
They blasted everybody.
Yeah.
I love those guys, but man, they caused some damage out there, for sure.
Yeah, so
Thanks,
tell us
man.
about Salvador, and just briefly talk about I also would love to know how you came up with the name.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Well, Salvador's been my band. I've been a part of that for about 17 years. I think it's more like 18, but I like to say 17 because it makes me feel younger. But yeah, we're from Austin, Texas, and we were a worship team that basically started playing just a little bit outside the walls. In Austin, it was a really big deal to play coffee houses. That was before the whole coffee house, a bigger movement of it. It was just right on the front end. And Austin was a pretty, I guess, it's a cooler city. It still is. I don't live there anymore, but it's a cooler city. And so they had coffee houses almost before Seattle and all that movement up there was happening, but then Austin really got into it. Well, that was our music venues. And so we used to play coffee houses all the time, and that was our big deal. Being a praise team, we were a worship team. And my brother was the original drummer, and my cousin is the original bass player for Salvador. And we were kind of a Texas trio. We thought we were going to be almost like a blues, good old-fashioned, straight-ahead Texas trio.
Yeah.
So we wrote songs that way, and before you know it, we had so many friends that were involved with us, and we loved. So we just kind of added some guys, more completely for the fellowship. We had no intention of making music as part of our. First of all, it was part of our lives, but never part of our living. We love to this day. It's like the church was a big part of who we are and who we still are. But at the same time, we started writing kind of this kind of Austin kind of fun music, and that became Salvador as people know it. When we got to Nashville, they added horns to our sound, and one of our producers, he just thought, let's do a horn section on this. That just became part of our sound, and we were like, we're doing this. This is what we're doing. And always had that dream, loved older 70s bands with horns. And so that's a little bit of the history of Salvador. But Salvador was originally a trio of we were a worship team for church. Wow. So yeah, that's what we did.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what's been your highlight or your favorite part of the band? What you guys have done?
I guess
besides having me as your security
well, I
guard.
was just about to say Spirit West Coast. There was a real handsome security guy there. I was just saying, hey, that guy's cool, man. I think that more than anything, the fellowship of seeing and getting to meet some people out there and playing with other bands, one of the really cool things that I've got a chance to be able to do is to be able to go out and extend some I believe extend some ministry to people that maybe up and coming bands. Like that's my favorite thing to see, like a younger band of people that are, I'll watch them climb out of their van and just go, yeah, man, I know we've been there, and I love that. I seem to gravitate my way towards people that are working hard, and just that's probably the nature of that was the nature of my dad and my brother, and so and I hope myself and I hope my sons see that, but. One of our highlights of being in a band is being able to go out and hang out with other bands. Yeah. I think it was for the fellowship. Yeah. Because we never really quite felt like we were, when people were like, dude, this is great, you're in a band, you're an artist. Artist, that word used to freak me out. I didn't like it. I was like, really? No, I'm not an artist, I'm in a band. That's different. And so anyway, only like as I've gotten older, I understand what people mean. It's a respectful way of saying stuff, but I still don't feel that way. I mean, I'm a worship leader. I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a friend, and then I get to play in a band. So I'd rather people say that, but I guess that wraps up into like the artist is a really cool bow, way of putting things.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's awesome.
Thanks,
and you're actually married to an artist as well, Jaci Velasquez, and she's been actually on our podcast before, so she kind of outdid you already, I guess.
She's amazing.
So this whole podcast is actually going to be about her.
I know, let's do that. You know what, that's my life, and you know what, I'm all right with that. When you marry somebody and you just, I believe this on my heart, I'm the biggest Jaci person fan out there. Jaci is still surprised sometimes when I don't know some of her songs because I think she feels like, you should know my songs, you're my husband. But I wasn't married to her songs or even to her when she was making that music. And over the last 10 years, 11 years, excuse me, it's been one of those really cool things to be such a fan of a person. That's the girl I married, was Jaci, the one that sat in this seat with just laughing and being funny. She's super funny, especially when she doesn't try to be. When she tries to be funny, it doesn't come off as good. I tell her all the time, I'm like, babe, just be you. And that's the girl that I married. She's super awesome. Always been that way.
That's awesome. And you guys are actually some of the reasons that I actually fell in love with CCM, and when I first started to listening to like Christian radio, and I loved Christian music so much that I actually, one of my first jobs was working at Berean Christian bookstore.
Yeah.
And I specifically applied for the music department so I could get like free music.
Yeah, of course.
Listen to Christian music all the time, and so thanks for just making a big impact on people's lives.
When I hear stories like that, and when we hear them, when we go around the country and still play music, there are some parts of that they're so encouraging. I never ever want to get into a situation where it's kind of like, I've been doing music. Once you become that guy that just takes it for granted, I'm still so surprised when people go, dude, love your band, love your song. I'm like, dude, thank you. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than thank you. That's really cool to hear. It's encouraging. It's just like when you talk to your pastor and you walk up and you put your hand on their shoulder and you say, hey man, I really need to hear that. I think specifically I think that they sit around going, I hope that this hits home for at least one person. And I think if you're sincere about it hitting one person, God will use those moments. And that's what our band was. We're like, if just a small percentage of people in the world like what we're doing, we've done our job. And so I always say, I don't want to be everybody's favorite record in their collection. I want to be the collection on the visor that you have like all the slots. And there's like, what, a dozen or maybe like 20? Or the little small booklet. I just want to be one of those. Even if I'm the last one, I'll take it. I'm not going to ever be the Stephen Curtis Chapman version of this. It's like, I want to be number 19 or 20. Us and like, I don't know who's out there is kind of crazy. Like, like a Burlap to Kashmir or, or a I don't know who those people would be, but I want to be in that group. So anyway, that's how I think of our music. So thanks, man.
That was great. So we had lunch with Jaci and some of our team a couple of weeks ago, and you mentioned that on your bucket list you have like being interviewed on this podcast. So we have to make it happen,
Thank you. Everyone needs to know out there that this is like a mercy podcast for me. I mean, Wisdom just decided, he was like, I'm going to take mercy on this guy because I couldn't believe it. You're like so famous. Instagram for me is like one of these really cool, it's my choice, I guess, outlet for social media. And nothing against any other ones, and everybody takes their own opinion about those things. But Instagram, like, I love seeing the image of what people's lives look like. Good and bad. I love when people like, there was a friend of mine, he had like a boot that like he lost his the string, you know, when you pull your leather boot strings, and every once in a while one will snap, and you're just going like, this is the worst thing that could happen today, or like your favorite shoe like gets wet and it gets ruined or something like that. Anyway, I love those parts of Instagram and seeing like the images of what people's lives look like, and not to just be like about shoes, but I love seeing people's like their kids and the way that they view their kids, because that's what I love about images when people put up like their kid does something crazy, or like our child at one point put Aquaphor all over his hair, and it took it felt like it took a month to get it out, you know. It was so greasy, but it was like all over it. It was like pure white, and it was so good. Anyway, so yes, this is like a famous podcast to me, and I only listen to like a very few, and this one's like, I was like, if one day I could be on there, I'll be so cool. So anyway, thank you for the mercy today.
Actually, because we were like talking about different podcasts over lunch, and I actually went and subscribed to one you mentioned, the Minimalist Podcast.
Yes.
I love it.
Love those guys.
I love how in the beginning some kids is like, there will be cussing on this podcast or something. You know?
Yeah, I can't recommend it like to everybody, but I mean, it's one of those things where we live in a real world out there. You know, it's like, you know, even my kids, I'm so guarded of what we watch. But man, I'm going, oh, that's at 7 o'clock in the afternoon on regular local TV. Yeah. It's like, oh man. But yes, they are. I mean, I love that they give mad props to like Dave Ramsey. Now, it doesn't mean I'm sitting around going, man, I agree 1,000,000%. Yeah. Like they have like a meditation thing that they talk about, and I take that as and I say, I'm going to use what they call meditation. That's going to be prayer time for me. So I just apply it, and hopefully that, you know, hopefully people would understand that I'm just applying things to my life, and changing it as I need to, obviously being a Christian and things like that. So it's cool, man.
Yeah, and we were talking about how like you go out and lead worship, you know, at different churches, and you were telling us about a church in, is it Ohio, that you go to, and one thing that really like stuck with me that you said is basically like worship leaders not having a green room and not like hanging out in the green room, you know. So I wanted you to share that, since you have so much experience, you know, as a worship leader, because I think a lot of times people see worship leader as like the guy that plays and sings on stage, or the girl, you know, that sings on stage. But there's so much more to it than the, you know, 60, 75 minutes that somebody's singing on stage. And so how can you be a more effective worship leader off the stage?
Okay, yeah, I'll go back to the basis of how this kind of came to mind, kind of came to the front of my mind. If anybody's ever been around me for long enough, I talk about family, I talk about my children all the time, my wife, who I love, and then there's this love for the church and to serve the church in a certain way. Now, I'll tell you more about that in a few minutes, but where this all sparked was recently, there was a young lady and an older lady that it wasn't her mom, it was just an older lady, and they kind of approached me with a question after I was leading worship at a church, and of course, who doesn't love to be encouraged, and hey, great job. When people say great job, my automatic response is, man, this team makes it easy. Because a lot of times they'll focus in on me and go, dude, that was really great worship, and I always say, yeah, dude, this team is, I mean, we're a team. Yeah. This is not me doing anything in particular other than preparing with my team. So when the young lady came up to me and with this other lady, and she said this, the older lady said, she said, I have a request of you, basically. Will you give this young lady some advice on leading worship? And my mind, when that question comes up, and it's after church, I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're on their way out, they're hungry, they don't want me to go through some big, long discussion about how I prepare. And I was thinking, what is it that comes to mind immediately? And what I told the young lady and the older lady, I basically told them, I was like, never ever spend your time in the green room. Don't be a green room worship artist. And when I think that they expected a different piece of advice. I think they were expecting me to talk about how to sing, what to say.
Get voice lessons.
Right. And then I kind of elaborated and I said, look, your voice is your voice. It is what it is. If you're a worship leader out there, I think that you'll appreciate what I'm just about to say. Right, this is what I'm going to say. Your voice, it is what it is. No one's going to be able to not only change that. Yeah, you can go to voice listens, you can try to change what you can, but at the end of the day, that's your weapon. That's your weapon God gave you. That's it. That's what you got. You know, you can instruct, sing from your diaphragm, do this, do that, all that stuff, but that's so small compared to the idea of stepping out of the back area of the church and going and serving people by listening to their stories. And I think it shocked her, but then she understood when I said, don't worry about singing, that will come. That's you. That's the natural you. That's the God-given talent God gave you. Don't worry about playing. If you're a little out of tune, it's okay. If your guitar sailed a little bit, what that means is it just came out of tune. It's okay. Because the people that are out there, you're serving them. And you know, all pastors do, they all serve all the time. They listen to your stories. Well, what makes us any different? So I told her, I was like, don't find yourself in the back drinking coffee, hitting up, you know, social media, while there's people out there that want to share their story with you. And so I kind of smiled at her and I was like, just don't find yourself being a green room worship leader. Wow. And so that was, and that started something for me in my mind that I realized that in this world, if I can say anything, everybody says, I want to serve. I want to serve. Well, go show it. Yeah. Go out there, man. Find out their stories. Look at them right in their eyes and say, hey, how are you? They will tell you. And so in those moments when you're up there on stage, you're going, wow, there's a lady here that her daughter came that doesn't believe in Jesus. And you're sitting there going, Jesus, how can I be transparent so they can see you right now? But without talking to that person, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know that story. Yeah. And you wouldn't know how to approach that day. And if you are truly out there to serve one person at a time, go serve them, man. Do it up. Rock it out. God will honor that.
Man, that's really powerful. I think that could be... We'll put that on Instagram as like a quote, you know?
Yeah, you know,
with like broken shoelaces.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, my boot's broken, man, the worst day. It's like, oh man, yeah. So it's awesome, thanks.
So I'm going to ask you something that could be potentially maybe controversial or it might press some buttons.
I like this.
So, you know, there's this whole thing about millennials, you know, feeling entitled and growing up feeling entitled. And some websites would actually categorize me as like the latter part of the millennial generation. So I've like watched a lot of videos and read a lot of discussions around this, the whole thing of entitlement. And I'm sure you're surrounded by a lot of millennials, like when you're leading worship and church and things like that. So what is your perspective on millennials, especially when you're talking about serving,
Yeah, I think that's where I think that's going to be a constant tug of war when you talk about what people think about the old school church compared to the new school church, so to speak. So if you're serving within a church, I think it's just being aware of what's happening around you will keep you focused on what's important. I think there's so much noise that's involved sometimes in a church. And that's what we kind of get swept up in the noise, where you just go, okay, well, we have to do this. I have to wear a certain kind of jean, or it has to be this particular set of songs. Yeah. And then we just forget that there are people that have maybe been in that congregation for 40 or 50 years, where I think just an awareness will take you and pull you in the right directions all the way around. So going back to the millennial thing, I think that what older folks like myself, I'm going to call myself, I'm Gen X, I'm 40 years old. So what we have to understand is that it may be all they know. Like I love the worship leader starter pack for the millennial. It's an in-ear monitor box. Okay, what that is personal in-ear monitors. Okay, a wireless mic. Okay, and then some sort of like iPad or some kind of digital scenario to remind them of songs or song selection. Okay, that almost personifies the new age of what it feels like to be
and skinny jeans.
And skinny jeans. Well, of course, you have to have that. Is that a thing? Yeah. I don't think, but that is the starter pack. Yeah. And when people know what I'm talking about when I say starter pack, if you listen to a podcast, you know what I'm talking about. Whereas the starter pack from when I grew up was tipping front of house speakers in a little bit so you can hear yourself. Lugging these huge, these huge speakers around so that way you had monitors at least. And, listening to Ron Canoli records to know what's the newest, what's the up jam, what am I going to use, Whereas right now it is so streamlined for us to be able to have the ability to be able just to click on a website and go, oh, these are the top 20 songs that people are singing in the country. So it's one of those things where entitlement is a hard word because no one wants to ever be that person where they feel entitled. But I think what it is I would call it focused in a different way. You have to focus in a different way. Remember that there's a broadness to the church. And anytime you find yourself in a situation where you're going, well, I don't care about that, basically what you're saying is, what's not important to me are the people. That's all. Wow. You're just forgetting that there's a whole group of people that may not understand it. That's why I love worship leading and then grabbing a hymn and just reminding people, this will bring you back to a moment. Every time I lead a hymn, or anytime anyone leads a hymn, you're going to find people in that congregation that are going to pull you aside and say, I wanted to tell you thank you for that. And it's going to give them a memory of something that may have had to do with church, whether it was a mom or dad or a grandparent or something like that. So I think that the whole idea of millennials are, man, are you kidding me? I have my favorite millennial. I have a friend of mine. He's my favorite millennial. I snap pictures of shoes and go, hey, are these cool? Even though people are like, oh, you shouldn't be talking about the importance of shoes. It's like, yeah, I've only got 4 things in my suitcase and shoes is one of them. And so, and it's like, oh, are these cool? Is this cool? But I never call him and go, hey, am I leading people the right way? It's not about that. It's more of how I focus in. He will tell me some things that are cool, and all the millennials out there, I want you to know there's such a huge impact that you will have on the church. Because the weapons and the things that you have, the technology that you have can span the world in a minute. Opposed to me, where I was sitting there dragging around my trailer full of gear and tipping front of house speakers in so I could hear myself. My pool was a little smaller. And so I think that's what ends up happening. But the starter pack is like personified millennial versus old school, No piano, no sheet music. It's like chord charts and in-ear monitors, man. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. But I'm always open for that discussion. And the moment that people go, oh, well, people are going to find anything wrong with what you're going to say. Those are like, I got you things. It's like, you can find any hole anywhere in the world with anything anyone says except for the Word of God. That's the only solid piece of information that you go, oh yeah? Find a hole in that. You can't. You can't. I dare you to try.
Yeah, I think that's really good stuff to chew on. I actually heard... I think it was like a Twitter conversation several years ago, and I saw a millennial worship artist post that he doesn't ever lead songs that don't personally move him, and I actually disagreed. I tweeted back, which I don't recommend engaging in debates on Twitter, but in that situation, I felt like I felt like I should share my my perspective on it. Sure. And I said, hey, last week I led worship at a retirement home in front of 50, people who are in their 70s, 80s, 90s. I sang How Great Thou Art, and people were in tears. And personally, it didn't really move me because, it's a hymn. I've sang it growing up and a million times. But for the people I was leading and serving that day, it moved them. So I said, I don't think it's always about what moves you, but what moves the people that you're actually called to lead.
That's a secret, but it's not a secret. You always remember you're serving others. It's a gift that God gave me. When people say stuff like, I love your voice, I always say thank you. I don't say, oh, it's nothing. No, it is a gift God gave me. But it doesn't mean that everybody listening to this podcast has something like a talent on an instrument. It could be something like, dude, the way you're serving. I've heard people say that before. The way you're serving, man, you are you are lifting up those chairs and you are switching over the sanctuary so now the kids can play in here. Or I know there's this whole idea of like the sanctuary is this, it's this booming area of servanthood that you can just find something. How am I going to, you know what, there's a mom there that has a baby that's crying and she needs to listen to this message. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get up and I'm going to go over there and ask her, would you mind if my wife and I take your baby and we'll stand in the back, you can see your baby. But I don't know what that is. I mean, people are like, oh, that's weird. Man, you can find an I got you situation with every situation. Yeah. But like if my wife walked up to your family and said, hey, your baby's crying, would you mind? I'll hold it. Let me hold him right over here. That'd be okay with you? You'd be like, yeah, man, that's really kind. Yeah. And so I think that those things, you're right. You were serving those people at that time. And you're right. I mean, we get caught up in our own we-ness a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And once that happens, you know, you've lost focus of the other 6 billion people in this world when you're thinking, man, I got to do this for me. It's like, no, man, no way.
Our time has flown by too. So.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Thank you so much for being on our podcast. Before we let you go, can you share like how people can connect with you online?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm on Instagram. I'm just Salvador Nic. That's not really like a band thing. That's just more of like my life and my, you know, like I think that a lot of people believe that like their life is based upon like what music they're making, and I just really haven't done that. Salvador also has one, but I very rarely even check it. But you know, that's my life, and I like to consider myself more than a band guy or you know, I'm a dad. I have a beautiful family. I have a 10-year-old that has some special needs, and we're on a journey with him. He's on the spectrum for autism, and then I have a 9-year-old brother. His 9-year-old brother that he is a wonderful example of what it is to serve someone with special needs, and that's my life. The joy of my life is not based upon, you know, what guitar I'm getting next or what amp or what tour I'm going to be on. We travel almost like the Partridge Family, man. We have a little van that we travel in, and that has been the so anyway, just Salvador Nic is my name, just Nic. And
do you remember what your last Instagram post was?
I think my last one, I couldn't even think of what it would be.
It was your son.
Oh, my boy. Yeah, okay. My boy, my little guy, he broke his wrist. And the other day, he has like these superhero rings. And so he was getting ready for school. And I guess to not feel awkward, which is a cool thing as a 9-year-old, like he had his sling on and his wrist was broken. And he had 5 rings on his 5 fingers. And I was like, dude, you are decorating it up, man. I was like, dude, I think I put like, when life hands you lemons, you put a ring on it, you know? And he did. And he was so, but man, that is like, that is my journey. That's my guys. And at the end of the day, for all of you out there in podcast land and in worship land, you know, I love seeing your stories, and I love following. I follow so many worship leaders, and I love how the worship leaders that are truly serving people are loving their families and serving their families, and I just love that. I love seeing that more than the amp selection that you have chosen for that Sunday, or even your chord charts, or even your congregation pictures. And so, anyway, thanks for having me, man. This was a dream come true.
We'll have to have you back. Maybe like you and Jaci can be on the same podcast next time. Maybe you guys will take it over, and
that's
we'll just leave the room.
That's my girl. Anytime you're ready, let me know. So.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, man.